Hey guys, welcome to Engineering the Body. This will be my very first YouTube video, and this will be the first video of another series, which I'll probably name something like diet mistakes, and everything nutrition in between. I do have a couple notes. It's behind the phone, so if I keep glancing to the left of the screen, or I guess you're right, it means I'm reading off. Anyway, let's get into it. Your first diet mistake that most people make is underestimating your caloric intake. What does that mean? What does underestimating your caloric mean really mean? It means when you sit down and you eat, when you're having that little piece of apple pie or whatever the heck it might be, it means that piece of pie, you're thinking it's like about 100 calories, 200 calories, when in reality it could be well over 400, and that's where you're making your biggest mistake. Whenever you eat out, you do not control how the particular restaurant makes their food, what kind of oils they use, the amount of oils they use, the dressing, the sauces that go on your chicken. Oftentimes, that's why it tastes so damn good, right? Oftentimes you get for example, if you go to a restaurant, you might get a chicken breast that still has skin on it. You don't account to these into your macros. So that's why oftentimes when you go out and you eat, you always underestimate your caloric intake. Most calories we intake in North America in particular are in liquid form. What does that mean? That means when you wake up and you have that glass of orange juice, you've had a lot of carbs. You've had between 30 to 40 grams of carbs just from a single glass of orange juice that you have in the morning with your meal. What else do? People drink pop. They don't drink diet pop. They drink a regular Coke, a regular ginger ale. And just to sort of bust all the myths about ginger ale is still pop. It's not like it's a magical, you're drinking ginger, you're not going to suddenly feel better or lose more weight or anything like that. It still has 40 grams of sugar. Take it out of your diet. That's huge. The drinking of calories, we drink smoothies, we drink coffees, and there's nothing wrong with coffee. As you know, coffee has 0 calories. The issue with coffee is when you go to a Starbucks or when you go to a McDonald's, you add these heavy creams, these milks, these sugars. You can add, you can make that coffee as calorie dense as you really want. It could go upwards of 200 calories if you really want it. Overestimating your caloric expenditure. What does that mean? That means your fitness tracker, your little Fitbit that you're using right now, is probably useless. It's not useless to the degree where you shouldn't count on it anymore or use it at all in your day-to-day life. But what I'm trying to say is, when it tells you that you've taken this amount of steps throughout your day and this is your how many calories you've burned, people often look down at it and like, oh man, I've burned 1,000 calories today. I can go out and get a couple ice creams or have half a pizza or whatever because I burned it off. I took all those steps today. That's what my Fitbit told me. Well, let's debunk that for a little bit. In your Fitbit, it doesn't account for your body composition, doesn't account for BMI, your body fat percentage. It doesn't account for your total weight, your height. So all those steps that you're taking and that estimation of the calories you are burning that it tells you you're burning is very skewed, and it can either be skewed in either direction, skewed to the left or sort of the right side of the equation there, because sometimes you'd be burning more calories depending on your weight. If you're like a bigger guy, you're obviously one step for you takes more energy than a guy that's lighter than you to do the same amount of work, right? If you're heavier, you expend more calories. If you're lighter, you expend less calories. You're more efficient. You don't have to move as much weight around. I'm a big guy, so I don't know. I don't have a Fitbit. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I know for a fact they're not very accurate. Next thing we're going to be talking about is treadmills, bikes, cardio equipment, rowing machines, whatever your gym has and whatever you use. It's not a good way to track how many calories you've burned. I see this all the time. People hop on a treadmill, they say quick start or whatever, or they go on the calorie burning mode of it, which will run you through a 20 or 30 minute cycle of what it thinks is optimal for fat burning. Again, that is not an accurate representation of how many calories you are burning. Um, Reason being, again, much like the Fitbit, it does not account for height, body comp, weight, and all the other factors that go alongside with tracking proper calorie burn. Realistically, if you don't break a sweat, or if your heart is not fatigued, and if you're not breathing heavy, realistically, if your heart rate is not elevated but above usual levels, chances are you're not burning any calories. So if you're going in there doing a couple rows, doing some chest press, but you're not really fatiguing yourself, you're not burning any fat. Macronutrient tracking. Let's talk about macronutrient tracking. So often people say they track their macros, but they don't really. And what I mean by that, I mean small things throughout the day that we might eat. We don't necessarily track. So what's an example of that? An example of that is maybe you're making pancakes, maybe you're making eggs, whatever you're making, you are likely to use a cooking spray of some sort, non-stick spray or whatever it might be, coconut oil. I'll just add a little bit and just so my stuff doesn't stick on the pan. Well, if you didn't know, between your three macronutrients, which are your proteins, your fat, and your carbs, your fat actually is the most calorically dense. It has 9 calories per gram, double what protein and carb have, which are 4 calories per gram. So when you're eating a tablespoon of oil, or even when you're spraying that pan with oil, you're intaking a lot of calories that you're not accounting for. So I would highly recommend, if you do use some sort of spray or coconut oil or whatever, just for non-stick purposes, not to necessarily add flavor, just in your macros at the very end of your day, maybe just account for 2 tablespoons of oil or like something like that, just to make sure it's accounted for. There are essential proteins, then there are fats. There are essential fats. Fats are 9 calories per gram, and then there are carbohydrates. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Technically speaking, we do not need carbohydrates. Carbohydrate is just a refined sugar that we intake because we love the taste and it's fast absorbing and our body loves glucose. So that's why we intake a lot of carbohydrate to produce the energy that we use through our daily lives. Like I said, try to get plenty of fat, anywhere between 0.3 and 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. For your protein, keep it between 0.8 and 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. And then for your carbs, 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, and then work your way down depending on your goals, right? So if you're starting at 1.5 grams per pound of body weight and you're seeing weight loss, keep at it. Why not? Enjoy your carbs. Have that apple pie. Have that pizza. Go ham, right? But if you're not seeing any progress, I would highly recommend manipulating the carbs to match your diet. So if you're not losing weight, you're gaining, cut back on carbs, leave the fat and the protein alone. Maybe later in the diet, drop off from the fat a little bit, but keep it the same. Try to keep it between 0.3 and 0.5, 0.3 being the lowest, 0.5 sort of being the highest point. And then play around with your carbs. If you want to lose weight, keep dropping your carbs weekly. Don't just go from 200 to 50 grams of carbs. Your body's going to get shocked. You're not going to have any glycogen in your muscles. You're not going to feel full. You're going to have shitty workouts. You're not going to enjoy your life, right? So slowly, gradually reduce your carbohydrate if you want some fat loss. If you want a weight gain, slowly, again, increase your carbohydrate intake. And maybe you can drop off from the protein. Ideally, when you're cutting, you should be using a high protein diet. And ideally, when you're bulking, you should use perhaps a lower. You can go a little bit lower when you're bulking on the protein, between 0.8 and 1 gram per pound of body weight. At least that's what's recommended. Next point, diet fads. So you want a diet that you can sustain for a long period of time. You do not want a diet that you can do for 3 weeks, see great results, then you go back to your other diet and you just balloon back up to where you last were, right? That's not sustainable. That's not the way to diet. And again, diet is used so often, but it's the wrong term to use. Really, a diet should be a shift in your lifestyle change that promotes healthier eating, that promotes incorporation of macronutrients that are dense, that are good for you. So like your avocados, your coconut oil, your sweet potatoes, your slow digesting carbs, stuff like that. And it should sort of lean away. You should start slowly lean away from those high sugary drinks and foods like your pop. Maybe go diet pop instead of using ketchup. Get reduced sugar ketchup. There's many changes you can do in your diet, very simple changes that you won't even really realize that will help you lose a ton of weight. You just got to give it time, right? It's not an overnight process. You got to really stick with it. That's what I would say. Don't go on ketogenic diets. I mean, ketogenic diets are just a whole separate video in itself. So yeah, thanks for watching this first video, of course, at Engineering the Body. And let me know down below what you want me to talk about next, whatever it may be. I'll compose a very detailed document that can outline the facts, the research behind everything I say, and what you can do to implement and how you can implement that plan. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.